What's going on, guys? I'm back with the 12th episode of my podcast. I have been dying a little inside. Finals have been happening, and it's been brutal. I got my last one tomorrow in California, and I cannot wait to be done. But on the positive side, on this recording, I got to talk to the USG VP of Communications, USG standing for Undergraduate Student Government. Yeah. Not to be confused with the VP of Communications for the entire Stony Brook campus. I got the time, privilege, and pleasure to talk to Justine Josue, who decided that she was okay with not being anonymous, also because it would be really difficult for her to be and talk about her position on campus, which is an integral position. And the reason I wanted to interview her is to give kind of her side of the story of what she does, how she's representing the student body, and get more information out to Stony Brook students who really don't play a role on campus life. Stony Brook University is, I think the population is 17,000 undergraduates, and a large amount of that is commuters. And because of that, it makes it kind of difficult for students to play a large role in campus life. And I know students have complained about campus life, and I think it's been getting better, but to really make the campus a place for students and keep the growth going, I think everyone needs to be involved. And in the conversation, we bring up a couple of key aspects of how people are not really as involved as they could be or should be in campus representation through their student government. So Justine, she's 20 years old. She's an undergraduate herself, obviously undergraduate student government. She started off her college career as a bio major, quickly realizing she didn't want to do that, and switched over pretty early on to journalism, which she found her passion in. She's always loved writing, and it definitely clicked. Later on down the line, she kind of reluctantly and on a whim ended up running for this role for the vice president of communications. And once in the position, she definitely didn't take it for granted. She, from everything that I've gotten from the conversation, had put her 100% throughout the entirety of it, and she even feels as though she hasn't put in enough work. And I felt the energy when I was talking to her about how much she cares for representing the student body, and I think it was really cool getting to talk to her and getting an inside look at her role as the VP and what she does. So on that note, I hope you guys really pay attention to what she does. She represents the students here, and I hope you just enjoy the conversation. Thank you for being here. Here goes the intro. No, so I figured out there are a couple of key settings that I can change around to make the audio more punchy. So when you hear a very professional podcast, it's the person's right in your ear and you hear all the inflections in their voice. So I've gotten it to a point where it's I can kind of imitate that, but I still haven't messed with the settings too much where it's I can do that to a science. If the audio is very bad and I need to fix something specifically, I probably won't be able to, and I'll just leave it in there. But I've been getting better. The when I recorded with Steve last time, compared to the 10th one, there's a very distinct difference in how punchy the voice is. And
I haven't listened to that one yet.
That was specific. I remember I listened to a couple minutes from both, and I kind of skipped around trying to find parts where it might be messed up. And the key difference was the 11th one was a lot more in my ear. I could tell what the person was saying. It was clearer. It was crisp. And I think the best way to kind of explain it is that it was a lot more crisp.
A little bit ASMR.
Yeah. Yeah, so first of all, thank you for being here, Justine.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being okay with not being anonymous. And again, people get hung up on that when I say that one of the key aspects of me recording these are anonymous. That's just for people who don't want their name out. And I think for you, it makes a little bit more sense just because I think you have a background in journalism and as a VP Communications, you have your name out there. And I mean, you're used to being kind of like in the light and talking publicly. So
right,
I thought,
yeah. And also some of the things we talk about, it would be hard to stay anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing I actually want to start talking about is your major originally. So this is more about you, less about your role. Because I know you since freshman year. For people who don't know me, I know Justine. I know people. I know that freshman year your major was not journalism oriented. I think you were bio. I don't know. Bio. Okay, that's what it was.
I started off as biology pre-med, and really I should have been undecided because that's what I was. Mm-hmm. But I was good at math and science in school, and my dad's a doctor, mom's a nurse, and I'm Filipino, so it was kind of just
Asian
like
household,
following the path without really thinking about it. So I just went into it, not even giving it serious thought. And then after just maybe like 2 or 3 weeks into classes, I was like, wow, I kind of hate this. Like, this is not that interesting to me. I wanted to be able to help people, but I knew that I was not
gonna be able to do it.
Yeah. I thought into the future how it's like, what is it, 4 years med school, 3 years residency or more, and
2 years. I thought it was usually 2 years.
I'm not sure, but I just knew that it was gonna be a long time.
Yeah, I know. The person who I had here who's going to be a doctor, he's explained he's going to do 4 years med school, 2 years residency, and then a year specialization.
Okay.
So approximately 7 years before he starts a full-time career.
Yeah, and that's a lot of commitment. Yeah. So it's got to be something that not only you're good at, but something that you really love.
You are passionate, and you know for a fact you're passionate.
I didn't have that passion. So I knew that my other thing was that I really loved writing, and I loved the idea of putting the puzzle of thoughts into exact words. Like, writing, I think, is the purest form of thinking. And so... I
mean, it is an art form.
Yeah. And so I just, I took 1 semester of just a bunch of different sorts of writing classes, like English and writing and journalism. I ended up going through journalism.
That's really interesting, because one of my biggest regrets is that it's a 4th year now, and I honestly... I don't completely regret being a math major, but I definitely think I didn't make the right decision being a math major 4 years down the line. I've had this conversation with my mom. I told her, I was like, I at one point during my, I think, sophomore year, I was like, I kind of want to be a physical therapist. And like, I have a background in personal training. Yeah. And like, I didn't really go through with it because I was already so far down the line. Yeah. I think it's good that you made the switch so early on. I mean, like, I am passionate about math, and I like it, I'm good at it, and I think I can do something as a career with it. But if I was to say what I'm passionate about, it'd definitely be more on terms of like helping people and that.
Did you ever sit back and like think it through?
No.
You just
not when I was when I was a freshman, not when I was a sophomore really. It was towards the end of sophomore year when I really started like kind of thinking outward and like thinking towards the future as to what I would do, and I couldn't think of anything specifically that I wanted to do with math, but I kept going with it because my grades were good, and I was like, like maybe I'll figure it out later down the line, but now I'm here and I still haven't really figured it out. But
unmapped.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. But again, it's not something I regret because it's not a major that I was innately bad. I didn't have to like push through it and hate the entire process. I was like, I wasn't the best at it, but I could do it and it was not an issue. And I was like, I want to keep doing this.
You're good at it. You like it.
Yeah.
You don't hate it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you got stuck in something that like...
I don't know, aggressive clapping from someone else.
So it's not like you got stuck in something that you just hate yourself for. It's just something you don't love.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's not so bad, and especially because of the major itself.
I mean it's a STEM major, and I mean math right now is one of the hottest majors that you could be in. Everything is kind of moving towards data analytics being a part of the company team, whatever it may be, to optimize what they're doing. So it's not like I won't have a career in something that I will enjoy, because like how broad the spectrum of careers
I feel like that's not something a lot of people know. Like my mom, so I told her I was doing this, and she asked like, oh, what's Imran's major? And I said math.
What do you mean?
And she was like,
wait, how'd she know me?
Because I told her she knows everyone's name.
Oh, cool.
In our whole like
squad
303 square family. And she asked her major, and I said math, and she's like, oh, math and education? I'm like, no, just math. And she's like, what do you do with math? Like, I thought all math majors become math teachers.
No, that's what my parents thought. My parents, when I originally went into it, because they wanted me to do engineering, typical Asian family, they want to do engineering or like be a doctor or something like that.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Right.
and I told them, I was like, I don't really want to do engineering, but I'm willing to do like applied math because I've always loved math. And my parents were like, what are you gonna do with that? You're gonna be a teacher? And I was like, no, like I could probably like finagle like something somewhere later down the line. But they never really understood it until I'd say like late into my sophomore year, because one of my uncles, he was an applied math major himself, and he's doing I think he's working for his master's right now in data analytics, and like he's a assistant professor at one of the universities near where he lives. I forgot which one specifically, but like he's making good money. And I told him to talk to my parents, and he explained like what he does.
Yo, back me up.
Yeah.
Back me up, man.
And he supported me, and he explained to my parents like how many different ways I can go with just a math major. And my parents were a lot calmer with that. I think a big thing with immigrant families is that they don't know what's out there because they haven't really like done that.
Yeah. And so they only know like the basics.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned how like the typical Asian family like go down that path. You know, one thing I'm grateful for is that my parents did have that mindset, like be a doctor or a nurse or something like that. But I was very grateful that there's very understanding. And when I called my dad and I told him I wanted to switch, there was no anger at all, and it was completely fine. And I was utterly surprised. Like,
yeah,
I was prepared to like have a full-on argument
about it.
And I was so relieved.
I think that's uncommon.
I thought that was rare, yeah.
Yeah, uncommon in a lot of families, especially if they're first-generation immigrants.
Yeah, especially.
It's just, they don't know. Like, they have this assumption, it's like, you know, they've put in all this work for you. It's like, if you're not going to be the top of the top, and the top of the top to them is either doctor or engineer, it's like, what are you doing?
Right, yeah.
Which is understandable. There's no animosity towards their idea of what that may be, but it's just that they don't know.
Yeah, if I went through that sort of journey from, like, coming from a different country and studying from nothing and making it, you know, and having your own kids, you want them to be even higher than you,
right?
And that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a lot
it is.
to expect.
It's a lot of weight.
Someone,
it's a lot of weight to put on.
But it makes a lot of sense. Like,
and you get it as you get older. Yeah. So we're straight off a little. Going back to when you switched to journalism. Yeah. So this was like what, your third week into your freshman year?
No, my third week into my freshman year is when I first had doubts.
Okay.
And when I seriously thought about it, which I should have done before I even stepped into college. But yeah, my third week. And then after that semester was when I switched. I think like at the end of that semester, like the last week, I officially switched.
End of the first semester?
That was, or whatever week it was of that first semester of my freshman year, yeah. Whatever week it was that we had to enroll into the classes next year, that's when I officially switched.
That's pretty early on.
Classes. Yeah, it is. It felt like it wasn't because...
I mean, you had an entire semester of something you just hated.
Of like chem and...
yeah.
And calculus that was like 2 grades above my level. That was torture. It was not fun.
So what was the transition from, you know, just being in journalism to being more active into the community? Do you think it played a role in you being more active in the community?
Oh, definitely. Some of the first classes that I took in journalism, they just want you to get used to reporting. So they kind of throw you into the water and give you like small homework assignments. Well, I think they're small now based on like what I'd have to do now. But they were big to me back then, where you would just talk to like hundreds of people and just get quotes from people. You weren't even writing stories yet. You were just getting used to putting yourself out there and talking to the people around you. Because, of course, you have to do that for reporting and interviewing. And so with that, I was constantly meeting new people on campus. And at the same time, I was a freshman, so it was like
that's
normal.
Difficult.
And it was difficult, but also like I had the shield that like I could say like, oh, I'm a freshman. I'm just meeting new people. You know?
Okay.
And then also I could also fall back on like, and it's for a class. And I could like ask them questions. So with meeting more and more people kind of like exponentially in that second semester my freshman year, as someone that came from a smaller high school and now to this huge campus with 17,000 undergraduate students, I genuinely, like this sounds so corny, but I genuinely in that semester gained a love for the school and the people in it. Like I think awesome. That like our student body is so special and unique, and I don't know if maybe it's just from my upbringing. I moved a lot, so I never really had like my home, you know, like students that I grew up with. And then also I went through high school with a primarily white student body. Like I was like one of only 2 Asian girls in my whole class. Maybe in the whole school.
Yeah, comparative to that, Stony Brooks is extremely diverse.
Yes, Stony Brook was hugely diverse. And so I thought that was awesome. And not even diverse in ethnicities, but also in mindsets, which is unfortunately kind of dwindling, I think. I think, like, I identify as a Democrat, and I have liberal views, but I think it's really important to have differing views.
Yeah,
and I saw
completely
that a lot.
agree with that.
I saw that a lot my second semester in freshman year, but I think it's starting to kind of fade away, and I'm not really sure why. But
what do you think is fading away?
Just the difference in views. I think it's becoming. I think a lot of college campuses are starting to become very liberal, and especially socially.
I agree with that. I think people have this like innate drive to be part of a party, like the idea of like a partisanship in the party. It's like
part of something.
Be part of one side or the other. Right. There's no like middle ground view. When I talked to one of the 3 mates that I have who's a Republican, that was I think half on the 3rd episode. Our main conversation was the fact that he's a Republican and he's had a lot of views that have affected my opinion on political matters. I was obviously a very diehard Democrat, liberal, because I come from an immigrant family.
Right.
But I came from that viewpoint not even knowing what that meant, realistically.
Right.
Because when you're a teenager, you don't really know anything politically oriented. You kind of just identify with whatever your parents identified with.
Yeah.
Having conversations with him, he brought up a lot of points where he explained what the movements he was going for, what he was doing, what his side of the story was, and that completely changed my viewpoint on a lot of things. And it just it definitely changed me from being like associating with someone who's extremely liberal to someone who's more in the middle, who sees things from both sides of the story and then tries to formulate my opinion after that.
Yeah, and in journalism, that's so important, to have fairness and balance when it's required, when the facts support balance, when there are things to debate about, when it's not a clear cut right or wrong, black and white. So yeah, just my second semester, diving in there and meeting new people, my views, I don't want to say shifted, but I was very happy to meet people that didn't share the same background, same views as me.
They just gave you a perspective on things.
And it made me, instead of not liking those people, it made me just like the school a lot in general.
So when did you actually decide that you wanted to be a larger part of the campus? Because it sounds like just from that story of you saying like you started loving the campus and the people, like you started having a drive for wanting to be a part of something larger than yourself and being part of the campus. So like when did that decision come about?
I actually didn't have a drive for getting involved specifically. I liked doing things that forced me to meet people, because after that second semester I liked meeting people and it was like just a fun thing to do. So I got involved in hall council my freshman year with Jordan, my suite mate, and we did that for fun, and that was like a really small little thing compared to like
you were the president of the hall council.
Yeah, I was the president of hall council.
And I strongly believe that you got a lot more people together during the years that you were part of hall council. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. Oh no, yeah, so I was hall council, I was an RHA senator freshman year, and then president sophomore year, I think. Or first semester, second semester, I can't remember. But I was one first and then the other. I can't remember how long it took. But yeah, at first that was just because it was fun. And then, when did I run? Junior year. I wasn't even thinking about USG, like the ginormous student government, because that's like the biggest.
That's the highest level of student representation that we have.
Yeah, exactly. Because those people, the people that were running for those positions, I always heard about the elections, because during campaign week, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. They are.
They're like sharks, and you always meet them, and then you learn about what it is, and you learn a little bit about the people running. But I never thought that I would run, and I never had interest in running, just because, well, partly because I didn't feel like I was qualified. Like, when I ended up running, I was running with people that were like the highest of the highs of involvement on campus already. Like, our vice president was the vice president of Resident Hall Association, which is the second largest organization.
Okay.
So she was like just below USG.
So like they were doing basically what you did from RJ senator to president, but like for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And larger scale.
Much larger scale. All I was like a hall council president for one building for like. And then how many people came to hall council?
I'd say 15 people. I mean, our building was large. I think we had 300
but then
or 400.
There's someone who's on exec board for Commuters Student Association, which is huge too. Or it's either commuters. There's two commuter organizations, but I forgot which one she was. But anyway, until Cole Lee, who was president for 2 terms, our freshman year and sophomore year, I believe. Or was it sophomore year and junior year? I think it's sophomore year and junior year.
I wouldn't be able to fact check you, so I'll believe you.
I'm just trying to get the facts right. Journalistic integrity.
Right.
He messaged me and kind of talked about how this position of vice president communications, it would be very helpful to have someone who had a journalistic background in that position, and also someone that genuinely cared about the school.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I'll try it. I'll talk to the guy who's doing it right now. Mm-hmm. We talked, and there were a lot of things that I found interesting about the job itself and the responsibilities that came with it. And I decided that I would just run and
just see what happens.
I wanted to run to see who I was running against, because I ended up caring about the position. I wanted it to be done right. Mm-hmm. And I thought that if I could do it right, then I want to do it. But if there's someone else more qualified that could do it, then I would have dropped out.
So like if they were passionate about it, it's like they would have more of a say, mm-hmm. You would respect that. Mm-hmm. And
but so when I went to that guy who was in the position, mm-hmm. and we talked about it, he was like, you're actually the only person that came to our office to like find out more about the job. And I was
that's really weird.
Okay, that's weird. Okay, I want to do this. Like, I don't want it to go to anyone else.
So how is someone running for that position and they didn't even have the inkling to care to even find out more about the position in the first place?
He ended up finding more about it like once campaigning started.
Okay.
But the guy that ran against me, he's great. I love him now. He's he actually work with him now.
Okay, nice.
So it wasn't like, because he was a freshman at the time.
That's pretty early to be.
Yeah, he was ambitious. So there wasn't much to know about him. So like that mindset of not wanting to let that position go to someone that mm-hmm. didn't care about it. It wasn't that like I thought, oh, like of course he doesn't care about it. It's just I just didn't know much about him. So
okay,
yeah.
So once you decided that you wanted to be in this position, like off the bat, did you start flooring it for like campaigning, getting your name out there, talking to people, and trying to figure out like what you can do now mm-hmm. to actually change, the position that your position would play in the USG?
Mm-hmm. So one of the parts that I played in our campaign was that I coordinated all of the campaign materials. So we had a graphic designer, Dana, and she designed everything, and then I did the like tedious work of like putting everyone's picture into the campaign posters, or scheduling the photographer mm-hmm. to take the professional pictures in the first place, and then photoshopping their pictures and putting it all into the posters. And there are how many students that are running, like 30 in our party, and then getting it printed and all that stuff. And like I designed the brochure and then got those printed. So
sounds
then we
like
had
it was a lot of work.
It was so much work. Like I think I stayed up till 3 or 4 a.m. maybe 4 nights just doing that stuff.
Wow.
And like social media and all of that. So because when I started learning about the people I was running with, it was a very well put together party, mm-hmm. and we all became friends pretty quickly, and they all cared a lot.
So you felt the
energy.
energy.
I started to care about them, and I wanted them to win too. So I put in a lot of energy for that. And then I kind of hit the ground running. Just once it was campaign week, there was an exact time when you could start campaigning. It was like 12 p.m. on this date was when you can start talking to people. Like before that, you were technically not even mm-hmm. not even supposed to tell people that you're running. But then like every minute of my free time, I was out there meeting people, sitting down with people, finding out like
what they want
and what what we could do to further that, and also telling them what plans we had as a party,
right,
if we were to get into office. Let me think of something.
I remember being helping with your campaign. Me and Pravin would go around.
Yeah, you and Pravin were awesome.
We went out and we talked to as many people as we could. Yeah. The thing is, every person that we went with, every like group that we started talking to, and we started telling them about USG, it was kind of astonishing how little the people on this campus knew about USG.
Right.
The thing is, USG, though it's just student run, they have a large role in what happens for the student body. The thing is, the student body, and I think a part of it is because of so much of it being a commuter campus, don't really have the time, or like, I don't think they like go out of their way to find out about what's going on. And I think it's an anomaly, because I think most college campuses outside of Stony Brook, I believe, have more of a kind of want to have a representation through their student body. And I think it's just more kind of around the campus. Whereas here, I mean, I didn't really know anything about USG until you started running, which says a lot. I didn't know anything until a close friend of mine started running for a position that was pretty up there.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think that's okay, because I think if, at this age you start getting involved in things like this, you'll have more of an idea of political representation when you're older, because that is very important in any community.
Right.
I mean, that's what shapes the decisions that happen in small scale, which will shape the decisions that happen large scale. And I think people just don't really take that into consideration. But going back to when me and him were campaigning, I remember the biggest point that sold the campaign, I believe, was having tampons in the bathrooms for females. Because, I mean, though for a guy, like, that's not a huge deal. Like, no guy's gonna be like, oh, like, that's amazing, yes. Like, I mean, it is huge. I mean, that's something that would affect the day-to-day of a girl like that indefinitely. And every time we mention that to a group of people, they'd be like, wow, like, that's crazy. Like, they're gonna do that. And we're like, yeah. And then this is how you vote for them. This is what you gotta do. And we like loved being part of that.
Yeah, that was a big selling point, and that was awesome, because it wasn't this made up initiative that we sat down and thought, like, oh, what would students vote for? Like, what sounds good? It was something that people in our party had been working on already,
right? And
we knew was a possibility.
It was logistical.
Yeah, it was logistical. There was a plan. There was a budget.
And the thing is, it's there now.
Yeah, and now it's there. So over the summer, it was all planned out, and it launched officially the very first day of this semester, which I thought was awesome. And it was one of my favorite things to do. Was one of the first things I did was for the semester was write the press release that detailed what exactly it was, what the initiative was, and what it meant, and what it changed. So now, if you're a girl and you're on campus, like, and you get your period, then you can just go to the rec center, or if it's a Wednesday, you could go to the SAC, and then they'll just, no questions asked, you can get it.
Right.
Or you don't even have to be a girl. Like, if you're anyone that just has a menstrual cycle, like, they're not gonna ask you. Or if you're a dude and your girlfriend's got it, they're not gonna ask you questions.
Right.
And nobody has abused it at all, which was
that a worry?
To some people.
Was that a worry that people
that was actually yeah that was
like
one
go
of
out
the
of their way and
arguments
take more than they did.
I remember during campaigning, when I would mention it, there were a couple people that were like, oh, what about people that would just like steal all of it and like take it all for themselves? And that has not happened yet.
Goes to show the good people of Stony Brook.
Yeah. And it's worked really well, and hopefully it will be expanding soon. Just have to find the budget for it.
So going back to just now, you said something about you wrote a press release for once that this happened, right? So how often does being VP of Communications tie into your actual journalism background? I mean, I'm assuming as VP of Communications a lot, but specifically, like, how often are you using things that you use in journalism?
They're pretty interconnected in terms of ethics and applying the values that you learn in journalism to the decisions that you have to make in the position. But logistically, like, doing journalistic things for the job of VP Communications, not that often.
Okay.
For the press release, that was a big thing. That was like very obviously tied, because you learned how to write an article, so you did it the right way. But for other things, it's a little bit more abstract. For example, I've got this new program that'll be fully launching next semester, USG Outreach, where the senators and representatives of USG will be on the ground on campus, walking around, similar to campaign week, and just talking to people.
Right.
So it's not like during campaign week, this is the first time you're learning about USG, and then after that, it kind of
dissipates, yeah.
Right? It'll be like a constant thing.
And this is what I was talking about, going to like other college campuses. I think that's more reoccurring in other campuses where the people who are part of the student body representatives, like they'll go out of their way and continuously talk to students and try to figure out what needs to be done.
Right, yeah. So that's something that it already soft launched at the end of this semester, where they have links up for surveys that they go out. They talk to people, they tell people what USG has been doing, and then they send them a link to participate on a couple questions of our surveys that just ask them things like just generally what they want. From small things to like, would you rather have a free t-shirt or a tank top? And, to bigger things like, what are your thoughts on changing the course retake policy to help us? If there's a huge support for it, that will help our case when we're presenting it to the people that make that decision to let it pass or not.
This actually ties into what I was saying with like math having such a big influence on everything. Like you said it right there, is that people saying what they want and aggregating that data and then actually having representation of what needs to be done. I mean, it's proof. Like it's there. It's solid. It's evidence. It's not something that you can dispute. And I think that's why students need to get more involved. Is by putting that vote in. Like it's a fact. Like we want this. You know.
And the connection with that to journalism is that in journalism you don't do anything, you don't say anything without facts to back it up. And so in one of my other responsibilities in the position, I'm on a board that decides things that affect a lot of students. What is it? The fun things, the major events like Back to the Brook, Brookfest, Wolfieland. And for those things, we have to sort of make decisions for what we think the students want. And for smaller things like would they rather have this kind of cup as a prize or this kind of cup?
It's not as big of a deal.
That doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to go out and survey thousands of students for that. But, like, for the larger things, I think it's, like, which artist we should get, or...
Because you're never going to please everyone. Right. So you'd want to please a majority, at the very least.
Or whether you want food trucks or not at Wolfieland. I don't know, like, the bigger event parts of Wolfieland... It's hard to think of specific examples, but like the artists especially. I mean, think
you have to take into consideration budgetary reasoning.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it, but personally, I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have that decision just from these less than 10 students on this board. So, getting student opinion by surveys and polls, I thought was very important. Especially from the journalistic standpoint.
So you said it was called, USG Outreach? And that's something that you guys are trying to launch, next semester?
Yeah, it's like my personal program. It's my little baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what have you done? Like, how is it made?
I designed an infographic that just kind of explains everything that USG is in an easy-to-read format. And then at the bottom it's got, like, the links on where to follow us so that you can keep up to date with what's going on. Because it's an organization that every student here pays, like...
Yeah, our money goes to this no matter what.
So it's like a resource to just help you stay up to date, like, what are we providing you? Right. And then also a resource to help you communicate to us, what do you want us to advocate for?
Really playing the role of communications VP.
So the people that are acting as USG representatives, they'll take a credential pass that like shows that they're the representative. And Dana, the graphic designer that worked with us, she designed that too. And then they'll go around, they'll talk to people about what it is, they'll give it the infographic, and then they'll lead them to the survey that we'll have. And then that survey, I'll update it throughout the semester with questions that pertain to whatever decisions we'll be needing to make soon.
It's a lot more student say going into this then. That's amazing.
That's my goal.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's going to be difficult, very definitely at this like forefront of getting it started.
Right, It started
but it does
just a couple weeks ago. And it was small, but
it's going to snowball.
Response.
It's going to snowball, especially if you have if you have social media and you're talking to people and you get people to talk to people. It's going to just build faster and faster.
Right. Yeah. Because often the way that things spread is just by word of mouth. There's only so much that you can do on social media. Like, I do paid promotions on our platforms, but they only reach so many people.
Right.
Oftentimes, the things that stick with you and the things that you remember is like, oh, I heard from this person, or it was in our group chat that this is happening. Or,
that's why when, going back to when me and Brian were helping campaign, is when we went to people and, sat down with them or stood around and talked to them for like 5 to 10 minutes, really delving into every little aspect of like what they want to know. It was more, it was literally, it was personal.
Personal, yeah.
Yeah, they felt it. Yeah. And
it's
I think
important.
that was crucial to them actually, caring about what we were saying.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, you guys were great. I remember during campaign week, there was a guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he ran before. He ran for president before. And he saw the way I was campaigning. He was just kind of watching because he was eating at the SAC or at Wang or somewhere. And he just watched the way I was. And I would, every time I was campaigning, I would sit down with the person for like 5 to 10 minutes. Even if it was like just one person. Even if it wasn't like a group of people, I would just sit with them and just explain what USG is, why I care, what we want. And it would be a conversation. I wasn't like lecturing them. And then I would just tell them how to vote, and I wouldn't make them vote in front of me, because that was against the rules, even though a lot of people were doing it. And 2, I just felt like that was wrong. Like, it was their choice.
Yeah,
like,
that's bias.
The point wasn't because I'm trying to make you vote for me. It's just to make you know how important it is to vote.
It's your journalistic ethics there.
Right, yeah. So I would do that, then I'd get up and then move on to the next one. So I wouldn't reach a whole lot of people in a lot of time, but there was no way I could do that. Exactly. There was no way I could do that the way I wanted to without taking the time. And so that guy that was watching me, he came up to me, he's like, "You're doing it wrong. Like, you gotta get in, get out. Like, you have to just sit down, make them vote for you." Like, he's like, "You're pretty."
Wrong.
Like, just like make them.
He said that.
He's like, "You're pretty. Get the phone out, make them vote, and just leave." And I was like,
"You're not connecting with the people. Then you're not representing anyone.
Yeah.
You're just there for the position itself."
And he was like, "If you want to win, that's how you have to do it." But I didn't change.
Well, he's wrong because you're here now. So
yeah,
screw that guy.
He kind of made me worry though. I was like, "Damn, like you're right." Like, then my opponents probably, because my opponent was on the team that was known for doing that. But no shade. I like them all as people. I didn't know how he was doing it because I wasn't watching him campaign, but it made me a little scared because, like, well, what if my opponent's reaching more people than me? But anyway.
What if you're not like optimizing your time right now?
Yeah, it was a very stressful week. Or was it 2 weeks? I can't even remember.
It was just a mesh of time.
It was fun, and it was
a time.
It was a time.
Taking all this into consideration, it sounds like you spend a lot of time behind this position, and obviously you care, you are passionate about it. Do you ever regret, like, how much time goes away to you fulfilling this position? Because as a college student, it's not like you don't have other responsibilities. You have so many other things to do, and this takes such a large amount of time out of your week. And on top of that, it's not even that you're just spending the allocated time that you're supposed to be spending as a job, quote unquote. Is you're looking at it more as just like a position where you need to be doing said things, not as just a job, but as a role, as a part of something larger than yourself. It's
a servant position. If you want to do the job well, you do it for more hours than minimally required. Yeah, I never regretted it. It's never crossed my mind because it's been a priority. So it's not like, I don't think I've never felt saddened by how much time I put into it.
It sounds as though you've never actually calculated the time that you spent in it. You don't think about the time itself. Right. You just do it.
You just think about it in terms of things you've gotten done. And to be honest, like, I have not done as great of a job as I wanted to. There have been a lot of like aspects to the position that I didn't fully understand, and that were,
you went into it relatively blind.
Right, yeah, because there are a lot of parts to the job itself that are like the job and not just like the ambitious initiatives and my baby, the USG Outreach and all of that. And like the fun stuff, there are a lot of like just like this has to get done, this has to get done, this has to get done, that I didn't know about it going into it. So I've never felt like I've put too much time into it. I've always felt like I haven't done enough.
Okay, that's good to know. That's someone who's representing our student body properly. do you think that so you said you made it a priority, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you ever think that it's something that someone should take into consideration way beforehand? Like, do you think anyone who runs for the position, like, they should be thinking about this way prior to they start, going for the position?
It depends on what you want it for. So if you just want it as a resume builder, then yeah, you should probably take that into consideration, because you might end up being someone that doesn't put any work into it, and that will be very obvious,
Mm-hmm.
and it will show, and then that could genuinely hurt you. I don't want to name any names, but there was a case where someone, Senate threatened to impeach them because they
just weren't playing an active role.
They didn't do anything. For a number of reasons. The guy wasn't a bad guy. It was just a complicated situation.
I mean, again, I started off the question is that you're a college student. In college, there's so many factors, so many variables, so much going on.
Of course, yeah. And so if it's not going to be a priority to you, then you're not going to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And that will hurt you. Mm-hmm. And it will hurt the people around you and the entire student body. Because if someone else could have done a better job, then it could have been
done
more
better,
efficiently run, and things could have been done faster, or more things could have been done.
Mm-hmm.
And things are changing every year. It's not
right.
like USG just sits in their butt and not do anything and just hold these names because they want to have these leadership names. Like, there was free laundry, and whether you like it or not,
no, that's
something
huge.
The students wanted.
That is
something
huge.
That passed, and then the menstrual hygiene initiative, and currently going through now is the course retake policy, mm-hmm. changing the way that your grade is affected when you retake a course. And they're happening. It's not just saying things.
I mean, that affects my day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
I do laundry for free now. I definitely do laundry a lot
mm-hmm.
more often because I can do it for free now.
Yeah, I love it. I hated the feeling of like being low on money and thinking like, do I do laundry or do I eat? Like, that's terrible. No one should have to think about it at this time when you're focusing on your studies.
Yeah.
Like, in the world when you're like making money, having a job, like that's normal. You know, laundry, you pay for it. You pay for the water.
Right now, it's like I have other things to do. I have a final that I need to fail. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. I'm paying for tuition.
I think it just makes it for a smoother system for the students.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it may seem small, but if you take into account that it affects on-campus life is 17,000 students.
Yeah.
So that's 17,000 lives
who
are doing laundry.
17,000 undergraduate students.
Yeah. And that's not including graduates. Does it affect graduate students? I don't think so.
I don't know
right?
if any graduate students live in dorms. I'm not sure how that works.
They live in Schoenberg. That's the only part of campus that are graduate students. But I don't know if that would affect them. Okay.
Maybe not.
So, other than those initiatives, what are like some of the largest roles that you've played as a VP, as a person who's at the forefront of communications?
Mm-hmm. Other than menstrual hygiene, a big part of my job is serving on the student activities board,
mm-hmm.
and so that's the board I mentioned earlier that decides things like the concert and the bigger events like senior events in Wolfieland. And one thing I did was when we were trying to choose the artists for the concert this year, they were gonna go through with it without any sort of student input. And I was
really?
Like, that's crazy. Like,
yeah, that
why?
Doesn't make any sense at all.
And they were like, okay, every year we put out a poll asking for what genre people want, and rap and hip hop always comes out on top. And so I was like, well, shouldn't we do the artists? Like, it doesn't make sense just to do...
Stop there.
Yeah. So we narrowed it down to a list of the artists that would be available during the one date that we had reserved for the arena. There are a lot of factors that go into it, like mm-hmm. when the arena is reserved, whether they're in our range for budget, and their
availability,
their background, their availability, and also their background, their security background.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a list of a few, and then I sent that out as soon as we had that list.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back with the numbers that none of them would have guessed. The artist that came out on top was actually an artist that nobody on our board would have guessed would be on top. And I think I can say it now because it was the Arctic Monkeys, but they ended up not being available. And the Arctic Monkeys is an indie rock band.
Yeah, what? Hey, that'd be dope. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
This is the concert where we ended up having Joey Badass?
No,
this is when
Post Malone.
Okay. Were you the Arctic Monkeys and then we went to Post Malone?
No, Arctic Monkeys, and then it was Lil Wayne.
But Lil Wayne didn't have security clearance.
Did not have security clearance. He refused to go through any sort of metal detector, and he has a charge for illegal weapons and gun possession, I believe.
Oh, that's not good.
It's called. And so metal detector is standard for every single artist we've ever had, whether it be a wand or walking.
That seems very simple. A simple process.
Very simple, and he would not agree to it. That he would not sign the contract because of that one line.
I mean,
and so we lost him.
Yeah,
it was for student safety. Like, if something, God forbid, something happened and they found out, like, it was student government pushed to let him through, with the exception of the metal detector, even though everyone else has gone through that, like, that'd be terrible. Like, a life. Or, like, I don't know. I don't want to be so dramatic, but like any situation where something bad happened. Yeah. And so we pushed for him for a while because that's what the numbers wanted. But then right on second place, not much far behind, was Post Malone and Khaled, right under Post Malone. Which is very close, yeah. But Post Malone... I think
Post Malone was one of the best choices because, fortunately, right when he he dropped the single, he dropped Rockstar.
And now he's like number 3 on Spotify, I think. So that was really lucky. I don't know how we're
I think we got him right at like the beginning of his blowing up as a rock star. And it's also, on top of that, his album's name was Stony, so I think that was just very convenient coincidence.
And he ended up being great. Like, he was so nice. He was great to work with.
I got a couple pictures with him.
Couple flicks. He played some basketball with students afterwards.
Yeah, I saw that. That was hilarious. He was just inebriated, just playing ball.
He was so sweet. He was like cool with everything.
I started watching a lot of interviews after going to that concert and realizing how young he is.
He's our age. He's pretty much our age.
But he looks like a 29-year-old hobo. Like, it's just, he doesn't take care of himself very well.
I don't know. I don't know if you can judge that based on how he looks, but. Yeah, he does. In terms of just
like age, the way he looks, he doesn't look his age. Is all I'm saying. Yeah, he looked. I thought he was like closing to his 30s, but it was really shocking to me to find that out. But I think that's cooler.
They originally weren't even considering him. Like, his name wasn't even thrown out until I said his name because I love Post Malone. Yeah. And I was like, Post Malone. And then one of the I don't want to give her name away. One of the older people that participates on her board, she like looked him up. She was like, "Oh, who is that?" Like, he's scary. He does look a little bit scary, but like a nice scary.
Yeah, right? Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of interviews with him. He seems very humble. He seems relatively not humble. In fact, like, I mean, he's always wearing like. Jewelry everywhere, but humble in terms of like who he is as a person. He comes from what I know a relatively stable family, and he is caring for his mother and all that stuff. And he's like, he doesn't seem psychotic in like some of the in the way that a lot of rock stars are, or like pop stars, doing crazy things. He seems relatively, for the sake of the word, normal. As to the extent that I can tell. I don't know him as a person, so I can't really attest to it to the best extent. But from what I see, he seems normal.
Same.
The last thing I want to go into is, so you started journalism, started getting to VP communications, and that was a jump. Do you think that they kind of went hand in hand and helped you grow in terms of like what you wanted to get out of journalism? And then taking a step past that, I know this is only because I know you personally, is that you want to go to law school. You've taken the LSAT twice, and do you think like those two things in combination have either made you take that into consideration separately because of those positions, or you think that's just something like out of nowhere, like you just felt like you fit there more?
Wow.
I know that's a big question, but it's like I'm trying to tie everything together.
Wow. I think that journalism and this position are very intertwined because of some of the things I talked about earlier with like the values that go into making certain decisions. And just the part of it where you just have to meet people and interact with people and consider other people's opinions and represent them correctly. That's the exact same thing and the same core values. With that, in law, that's also a huge, important core
It's
value.
ethics, moral and ethics.
Yeah, the moral ethics and representing things correctly and fairly.
Did you ever tie that together when you thought about going to law school, or is it okay?
Definitely. Well, the first thing that intrigued me about law school was I went to a pre-law society meeting. It's like a club on a whim, and
you do a lot of things on a whim.
I do, actually.
Works out. It just works out.
There was an admissions counselor visiting, and he talked about law school. One student asked, "What's one thing that students seem to struggle with the most once they get into law school?" And he said, "The amount of writing that's into it." And that kind of
clicked. I love writing.
I was like, oh, I love writing. I can do more writing. And also part of it is kind of little kid in me is not ready to go out into the world and start my career. So I was thinking I can do more school and I can write. I'll do that. So ideally, thinking into the future, a year from now, my ideal position, or how would you say, my ideal life is
situation
is to be in law school and have a job on the side, maybe doing something in journalism, because that would be amazing. And yeah, it all just ties into wanting to represent things correctly and also represent people fairly, and also having fun with the puzzle of words and writing and all of that.
I think it's awesome how the things that you did on a whim just happened to work out so well.
I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate.
As cliche as it is, I say this every time. It's literally this the name of this podcast is so prevalent in every single person that I've talked to. You never know you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that everything I've done on a whim has been great, but I do a lot of things on a whim, so the odds of something working out is increased.
Right.
So that definitely helps.
How big do you think the impact has been on your people skills? This is the last question. I feel like I've asked way more questions than I planned on asking this time.
If you want. Let me think. What was your question? Say again.
People skills.
Oh.
Just talk, because based upon how large this position is, based upon your background in journalism, and on top of that, you started pretty early on. You definitely had to confront a lot more people on a regular basis.
Right.
So, do you ever take into consideration how big of an impact that probably had?
I never thought about it, but yeah, thinking back to senior me in high school and senior me now, we're two completely different people in that aspect. Mm-hmm. Senior me in high school would have been... I still get nervous talking to people, of course, but would have been deathly sort of afraid to start... not conversations with people, but serious conversations with people and talking about real things. I've never really been afraid to meet people. I love meeting new people, but now with these things, I'm more eager to talk to people about deeper things in depth, what matters to them, more serious topics other than just having fun, making new friends, which has always been, it's been a constant in my life, but that added on to it, I guess, makes it, I don't want to say easier, but makes it more urgent. Makes me want to meet more people.
That's awesome. And I think you're doing a great job representing our student body.
Thanks. Say more.
Little hair flip. Given everything that I've talked to you about, because this isn't something that I don't go out of my way to talk to you about this, even though I am a friend. This is just something you do. And I think based on just this conversation, it seems like you care a lot more than I thought, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. I know that you did care, but not to the extent that I've gotten from this conversation. It seems as though you have given it 100% to the extent that you can. Again, as a college student balancing so many things, you can only do so much.
Right. I've done what I can, and it hasn't nearly been enough. But I plan to do much more. Right.
You have a semester left, and you're gonna do that the USG Outreach program. What I'll do is I'll probably... have you made an outline for it or anything like that? So do you have if you have any links or anything like that, I could probably get that out to people. Okay. Or try my best. Though I am small and I don't really reach that many people, I like the idea of trying to reach people.
You're growing.
I'm trying. So I'll try to get that out to people. I'm gonna probably start walking to people, just campaigning again. But on that note, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. And yeah.